I will say one thing that Hollywood should do, considering how things worked out this weekend with Indiana Jones and Insidious, and that is one thing that could also help with this whole thing of these blockbusters failing and flopping right now, is maybe with Insidious doing better than Indiana Jones this weekend, maybe studios should start taking a look at low budget horror films as an example of how they should be moving forward from this point. Go on over to dtmerch.com. Show some love to us by getting that merch that we have available for you. Check us out. Double Toasted live in Atlanta. That's going to be September 2nd for a night of comedy games and the after party that we have going on for you. That's going to be at the Marriotta's new theater in the square. So this weekend saw the great Indiana Jones.
You stole it.
Then you stole it.
And then I stole it. It's called capitalism.
There might be some turbulence.
This weekend saw the great Indiana Jones finally get his ass beat, and not and not by Nazis, but by a bunch of cheap ass ghosts. We're talking about Insidious, y'all. Insidious came out, the movie we just got through reviewing, came out and beat this movie after just 1 week of release. I'm talking about Indiana Jones, 1 week of release. You know, there's a time when Indiana Jones would have dominated for weeks, probably even a month or more. But different times, a different place. And the funny thing about this, see, it would be different if he got beat by, you know, some badass ghosts. But we talking about, when I say cheap ghosts, I'm talking about some ghosts with sheets on and shit like that. You know, I'm talking about some old bed sheets.
Right.
Right there.
Some
you know?
Peanuts ghosts.
Yeah, I'm talking about Charlie Brown in the game. You know, I'm talking about getting your mama's pillowcase and all that kind of stuff, man. You know, so I'm talking a very, very low budget horror movie, man, that beat out a $300 million, reported to be a $300 million blockbuster, summer blockbuster. People, this is like Goodwill beating out Walmart. You know, this is, you know, because Walmart is a multi-billion-dollar company.
Sure.
Yeah.
Goodwill sells just cheap shit, you know.
Used stuff.
Used
things
stuff.
you've seen over and over and over.
Lazy stuff, you know, people. You know, this is you know, when you look at what at how a movie like this, and they say, you know, and Indiana Jones, you know, just to be fair, it's easy to look at a movie that they say is bombing at this point and bombing bad. It's easy to look at it and, you know, start jumping on it and making fun of it. It's a movie that I thought was just okay, you know. I mean, bad for an Indiana Jones movie in its performance, but as far as just a summer action flick, I thought it was all right, you know, just okay. Thought it could have been much better, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay, I guess. I mean, there's people, they're defenders, because I had a friend, he wrote a whole thing and saying like, hey, this ticked the nostalgia boxes for me, and if that's not for you, then don't worry about it.
I can see that.
Yeah. That's fair. I can see that. For me, it was just like, seeing it the once was I have no desire to watch this ever again.
I will never see this movie again.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a thoroughly mediocre movie. But that's the thing. It's like based on its legacy, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that it's one of the greatest blockbusters of all time. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is one of its sequels?
Yeah.
Really? This is the best you can do?
It's, I don't know. I say this is the sequel nobody asked for, but I guess it's the sequel that I was not asking for. It seemed like so many people were asking for it. And then it's like, hey, well, here you go. Yeah. This is why I was telling you not to ask for it. It's been too long, and it's just not going to work out like you think it is.
There's always a chance it could have. You never know. Now we know. You know what I mean? It's because a lot of people wanted something to end on a good note, not having to think about Crystal Skull. I think it's better than Crystal Skull. And, you know, we already did our review. I'm just saying that it bombed, but when I saw it as a Hollywood action film, if I saw it in the theater, I wouldn't regret it. I'm like you, wouldn't remember too much of it. Won't go see it again. I might check it out if it's on TV, might watch some scenes, had some fun parts in it, but not something that I think is great. Not at all. Just okay, adequate, whatever. But that being the case, even if this had been amazing, there's still a chance. There's still a chance that this still would have bombed. Mm-hmm. If this had been incredible, there's still a chance that this is something that would not have performed well at the theater. And that's because, again, we're talking about these movies flopping, these big, excessive budgets for these blockbusters, are excessively budgeted blockbusters bombing out there because there's just too many of them coming out. And that makes it hard. The higher your budget, look, you're going to get to a point where unless you just have enough room to not have any competition out there at all, then you're not going to make the money back. It's just too much money.
Yes, but it sounds like its competition was this Insidious movie, which shouldn't have been its competition.
But that's the point. There's so much, and the whole landscape has changed. But there's so much going on that, and there's reasons why Insidious probably came out and did better than this movie here, and the budget is one of them.
Well, one of the things I would say is, and it pains me even to say this, but Indiana Jones is not as relevant as we think it is nowadays.
No.
Because again, it's a franchise that came out in the 80s. Its best entries were in the 80s, and since that time, you had a 20-year gap in between Last Crusade and Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Then a 15-year gap between Dial of Destiny. Again, coming off of a legacy sequel, which has been derided and considered to be like one of the worst of all time. It's so much going up against it. Insidious has been the pop culture zeitgeist for years. You have a generation, my people in my generation and younger who are like, oh yeah, Insidious movies, I know those. I'll go see them. And Jones like, what?
Yeah.
The guy? Okay, sure. I think that there are so many reasons to why Indiana Jones failed, why Insidious has succeeded.
Well, also, I mean, this is something where it seems like we're picking on Indiana Jones, but it's not just Indiana Jones.
No.
That's the thing about this.
That's true.
It's not, we're going on a rant about Indiana Jones, and it's not just Indiana Jones that is doing this. That's the thing. That's why I say it could have been, this could have been an amazing movie. It could have even been like in the top, 5, could have been number 1 for weeks, but still not succeed. And that's because Indiana Jones is not just doing this. A lot of movies are doing this. A lot of blockbusters are in the same position as Indiana Jones, where they just can't compete with the number of blockbusters that are coming out, and they won't recoup in the theaters. And we talked about many reasons why so many of these blockbusters flop. And we've given a lot of answers. There's no one answer for it. Last week we gave a lot. Some other people gave theirs, and you can go on and on. I mean, there are some really hardcore reasons why, but I will say one thing that Hollywood should do, considering how things worked out this weekend with Indiana Jones and Insidious, and that is one thing that could also help with this whole thing of these blockbusters failing and flopping right now, is maybe with Insidious doing better than Indiana Jones this weekend, maybe studios should start taking a look at low-budget horror films as an example of how they should be moving forward from this point. Now, there's a lot of things that they should be looking at, but horror movies right now, especially with Insidious doing much better than Indiana Jones, horror movies should probably be an immediate go-to. Low-budget horror movies, they enjoy a lot of the same perks that big budget horror movies do. I mean, our big budget blockbusters do. Low budget horror movies, they got a lot of the same perks that these big budget blockbusters have. They have, the genre films with built-in audiences. They can create years of lasting properties with potential after potential for sequels. You could look at the Conjuring universe now.
Yeah.
They spun off sequel after sequel with, several spin-off films.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
You have branding opportunities. I mean, looking at Halloween. Halloween is still going strong. It's still a strong brand.
Yep.
And even and we're talking about rated R properties that still have a lot of appeal to kids, because a lot of kids go to the Halloween store during Halloween, and they get the Jason mask and the Michael Myers mask.
Ghostface, Scream. Look at Scream coming back.
Oh, Scream! That's right. With Scream coming back, the branding opportunities with these is incredible. What they don't have, that big blockbusters have, is skyrocketing budgets.
Yeah.
Which means that even a failure can be profitable. I mean, a movie might be a critical failure. It might not last for more than one weekend, but it can still make money.
Make a profit.
It can still turn a profit quickly. Horror, the thing with horror that Hollywood should take notice of, first and foremost, in addition to the budget, which Blumhouse has just made a killing off of, man. You know, that low budgets, that's their successful model.
Like 5 million, and then like, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Do what you want.
Blumhouse is a studio that fails upwards sometimes.
Yes.
So the budgets are one thing to learn from. You know, just as far as just cutting back just a little bit. You know, because now that your profits, your budgets are getting so high, you're reaching a point where it's unrealistic to try and make your money back, especially with the competition right now. But more importantly, actually, money. What's more important? Money, nothing. But I would say the second thing is that right now, horror is just giving us alternatives. You know, they're not giving us the same formulaic stories. You know, they're not giving us the same, special effects driven films. You know, they're not giving us the same, type of sequel after sequel. At some point, they might, if they get successful enough. But, the blockbuster machine gets stale real quick.
That's true.
Real quick. Mm-hmm. They're relying on, too many. Today, what are they relying on? They're relying on too much nostalgia, too many stingers, sequels,
CGI. Spectacle, yeah.
The scripts are starting to blend, especially with the superheroes, DC and Marvel. I mean, it's all just starting to be people just beating each other.
Formulaic.
Very formulaic. Yeah. And also, everybody trying to create a universe and trying way too hard. 2022 and 2023, they offered us some very fresh and riskier concepts. And most of those things were done with horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Because, the budgets were lower. They could take the risk. I mean, think about some of the stuff that we saw in 2022 and 2023. Smile.
Yeah.
Smile came out in 2022. Great concept. I mean, kind of a riff on It Follows in a way, but it was a cool concept. I'm looking at horror that put emphasis on character. There's two movies that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed X. And then X had a sequel. X came out with Pearl. Well, I feel bad for that goose, man.
I know.
This was doing anything to anybody.
I want that goose to have his own movie.
Come on, Spin off. What you doing with that?
No, wait a minute, Pearl!
I thought that between X and Pearl, that was a great horror or even thriller series that explored. Its emphasis wasn't on gore or trying to sell a product or and it wasn't a sequel for the sake of a sequel. It was a sequel for the sake of exploring a character.
Yeah, both films are character based, story based.
Exactly, and it was great to see one of the most insane and riskier movies that came out. I mean, something that was so outrageous, so out there. Any other time, it could have easily have been a flop itself, just because the story is so crazy. But I was happy to see that be a success.
This process might seem overwhelming.
That's Barbarian, man. Barbarian, that concept is wild, man. And, I think the reason why something like Barbarian was a success is because it was so different. It was a movie that went against a lot of things that, that seemed too familiar. And it was also a very low budget film. So it ended up, not only making its money back, but a lot of critical and audience praise for this. Sometimes the more absurd the movies were, or the more absurd the marketing was, the better. We all saw one marketing campaign that just, it went gangbusters, man. I mean, I danced.
Just popping and locking. I love it.
Greedy arms, man. Yeah, man.
One of my favorite movies this year so far. I love Meg. I saw it twice. How enjoyable it was.
Yeah, I want to see this again because I loved it. But I love Megan. But man, that dance was one of the things that sold the movie.
Sold it,
yeah, great marketing campaign.
But that dance sold it because it was so absurd and crazy. A lot of people said they had to say, "What the f is this? I got to see this." It was the year of like crazy horror, even with horror comedies, man. Again, sometimes the weirder or crazier or absurd the concept was, the more people want to see it.
No. The bear, it fucking did cocaine.
I mean, that line alone made people want to see this movie, man. Listen, I look at movies that, again, I'm fair. I look at movies that I didn't like. That I thought maybe weren't that good. Halloween Ends. I hated that movie. I hate it, but I respect that it tried something different.
Yeah.
You know, even the
I liked it for that. Martin and I were in that group.
I mean, like I said, no offense to anybody that liked it. I hated this. Respect, though, for taking something that could have rolled easily on nostalgia.
Sure.
Could have been that Michael Myers just going around stabbing people
Doing
like
the
he
same
usually
thing
does.
again.
But, you know, they tried something different. Now, whether you like that or not, that depends on you. But at least they tried something outside of the norm.
The norm, yeah.
Yeah.
And I respect it for that. And I'm going to tell you, not all these movies made $100 million. A couple of them actually did, but not all of them. But you know what they all did do? They made money.
Yeah, made a
They
profit.
made
They made a
a
profit.
They made a profit. Yeah, all these movies made a profit, man. Even movies that came and went, because you heard these movies. Some of these movies you might totally forget about, like The Pope's Exorcist, which I saw and I thought, all right, you know, God damn, bitch, yeah, I'm bobbing the bird. But
What about it?
Yeah, what you gonna do about it? I saw this, thought it was a rental. I didn't think it was terrible. I thought it had some good parts in there. Forgot about it, but it made money. Also, there was a movie that I did like and have a good time in, and still thinking about it. But if I did forget about it, it's only because that movie really came and went, man. That movie was gone and no one saw it. And it could easily be considered a bomb by most people.
In your predicament, the black character is always the first to die. I will spare your lives if you sacrifice the person you deem the blackest.
The blackest?
Nobody should judge anybody in your group.
Yeah, the blackest one gonna say that. We were saying that we were good. Hey, get that brother wrong. He was the first one to speak up. He said, shit, I know I'm the blackest one in here.
You have 2 minutes to decide.
Shanika, she say nigga the most.
Nigga.
I voted for Trump.
Twice. The Blackening, man. The Blackening. Now that movie didn't even open up in the top 6 or 7, I don't think. I mean, it's opened up low, but the budget on it was so low, and it reached its demographic, its niche audience, for that one weekend that it made back its production budget.
Yeah. And it's the kind of movie that will do well on home video, which it will be in just like 2 or 3 weeks.
I feel like this film's going to be a cult movie.
Yeah.
Nope, you were exactly right, man.
A lot of money that way.
Yeah. So these movies made their money back. Now, that's not me coming in and saying at all, because I know we pick on a lot of these movies now. Or it seems like we are picking on these movies now. Kicking these movies while they're down. The Flash is
I'll
something.
kick the shit out of that movie. I do not. That movie is so thoroughly mediocre.
It's a movie that, again, I can see people not liking. Again, it's a movie that I liked when I saw it in the theater. Didn't think it was great. Thought it was all right. Had fun watching it as a summer blockbuster. But I'm not saying that every one of these movies. I'm not saying every one of these studios. I'm not saying that every one of them has to get into horror. That's not my point. My point is that these horror movies right now, especially with a horror movie, knocking a $300 million blockbuster out of number one after 1 week, it should be making Hollywood rethink about these huge, excessive budgets, man.
Yeah. These
horror movies prove that the model of big budget films being released week after week, that's not going to work anymore. Because if you're going to do that, you're going to continue to do that, then yes, you're going to have to cut back on the budgets. Now the budgets are making them feel constrained.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right now, this whole thing with Michael Keaton Batman, sure, that was cool. It was all right. It was fun. But now these movies are depending on things like that. They're depending on nostalgia because we can't take risk.
Mm-hmm.
Because risks cost too much money
Right.
to do. It's not, because I'm talking about horror movies here. And it's looking like I'm trying to, compare these big budget movies to horror movies. I'm saying that there are lessons that they can pick from these, they can learn from these lower budget horror movies. But to further my point, it's not just the horror movies that prove that point. The highest grossing movie of the summer, it just knocked out Guardians of the Galaxy. The highest grossing of the highest grossing movie of the summer. Do you know what that is?
No.
You know what it is?
I'm going to say Across the Spider-Verse.
Want to get out of here?
Oh, Quinn? Who's the new guy? This is unbelievable.
This is the lobby.
And it kind of is unbelievable that they made this for $100 million. the highest grossing movie this summer is probably by box office comparisons is the least expensive. The least expensive blockbuster. And also the visually most impressive.
Yeah.
Yes. This came in and
Dominated.
And dominated, yeah.
I mean, it's the big winner of June, where everything else has been a loser, aside from, maybe some smaller movies.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that just kind of proves that you do not need that big price tag to visually impress. You don't need it to even make those kind of visuals, probably. I don't know why these movies are costing so much.
I think that there's been like an apparatus to blockbuster filmmaking in place, I would say, certainly since like the start of the 21st century. It's like, this is what you have to work with. This is your budget. This is what you got to do. We can't take this risk.
Yeah.
And you have to do it like this way. And then because of that is constrained filmmakers so much. And that's why we've had these kind of like blasé, really generic, films that have come out. Certainly now.
At least when I look at the blockbusters that have done well, that weren't the flops, that racked up the big numbers, and I can think of 3. And in each case, the people who worked on them had a passion for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they weren't really so much following a formula. And that would be Top Gun Maverick, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Across the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
But with these others, they're more like corporate properties.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this is on the schedule. We have to release this. Let's put these things in place. Since there's nobody really driving it, you got to just spend money to make stuff happen. And there's no care in how it does. It's like, well, we got this set piece, and if we put one of these in here and make sure you got a CGI team to do all this and all this stuff with the exception of Across the Spider-Verse, all this stuff with multiverses, it's just a big, hey, this is an open door to throw in IP and nostalgia. And there's nobody going like, well, let's work out how this works. It's like, just put it together. Just do it.
Well, yeah, Across the Spider-Verse is this summer's Maverick, Yeah, because it's something that was made with a lot of care. That's why I said that you have to look at what these horror movies are doing, and they're doing things that are not the typical, CGI action film or superhero film. And even 101 Deadpool says the novelty of overinflated big budget CGI blockbusters is worn off.
Yeah.
The well has gone dry. And you got to keep in mind that, when I talk about competition, it's not just blockbusters competing with each other. And it's not just blockbusters competing with horror movies, even though they're going to have to. You got to consider that, you're still going to have out of nowhere probably a lower budget comedy. Like No Hard Feelings with Jennifer Lawrence. That made a profit.
Good. This is great. It's such a fun movie.
Yeah, that came out. And they might be small, but there's a time when these blockbusters were considered too big to go up against. There used to be a term back in the day, the 800-pound gorilla of the summer, and it would be suicide to go up against this. Now, they're just these little creatures chipping at the feet.
Yeah.
Of these, they're like little chihuahuas gnawing at the feet of these blockbusters,
just bring
man.
them down like hyenas.
Yeah, they're bringing them down, man. And so now, when you with so much competition, these are going in and taking away from business.
Yeah.
You also have, the occasional movie that's just marketed to a niche market that people just kind of overlooked, or is usually with Hollywood something that they don't really think about on a consistent basis.
So you quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
It's all rebel territory. No one goes in.
What's Jesus' name?
Sound of Freedom. Oh, Jim Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel. This is Sound of Freedom, and you heard that. Let freedom ring. This is a heavily right-wing marketed film, almost to the point where it's even appealing to faith-based people. But this came out of nowhere and made money this weekend. Came in 3rd place and actually did very well. I mean, listen, forget the politics of it, because Jim Caviezel, he's crazy.
Yeah. I've seen some of his statements. Yeah, no, he's
crazy. He's one of those QAnon guys.
Yeah.
Always that.
Yeah, he's a Q.
Oh, okay.
So
capital Q.
Yeah. So that's why they cast him too, because he's he appeals to those people, man.
Well, it just seemed like once he played Jesus, his career took a different turn.
Yep.
Yeah. But that movie made money, man. Lower budget films always, we're not saying it's a guarantee, because when you look at some of these movies that you have here, man, a a lot of them didn't do well. You know, I won't say a lot, but some didn't do well. Today we're just talking about Joyride. Joyride, which I hear from some people is actually being well received. That didn't do too well. You know, it's a raunchy comedy, you know, that they're trying to return to with this one. You know, of course, much lower budgeted than some of these blockbusters, but didn't do so well. Another that just completely bombed, Renfield. You know, and probably word of mouth didn't help that.
It didn't help that it was terrible.
I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't think it was good.
I think a third of the movie's great, and the rest of it's like, what is this? This is not what I was marketed.
Yeah, but a lot of people I think felt like you because this got bad word of mouth.
It did. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it got a bad cinema score when people walked out.
I participated in that bad word of mouth.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by it at all. It didn't work.
No,
I'll tell you, these didn't do well, but they didn't cost $250 million too. You know, so.
Yes, not as much lost in the end.
Exactly.
I mean, it just seems like it's always the big gamble. Like if we spend it right, if we spend this much money, we might lose it, but we could win big.
Yeah.
This could be that movie that just brings in money.
That's true.
We could have a $1 billion movie on our hands. And you know, that's the thing about gambling. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Yeah, true. That's true. But the big takeaway message from this is just bring your budgets down. I mean, your budgets, at this point, we finally got to this point where no one cares. In fact, people are sick of it. You know, I never thought we'd reach this day where people would be tired of spectacle and big budgets, because I grew up in the age of blockbusters. Sure. But we are at that point now where people just it's not superhero fatigue. They call it now blockbusters fatigue.
Right. You know, and to that point, not to interrupt, but I was reading an article because, you know, they're releasing new stuff of Deadpool 3, which is coming out. That'll be out next year. And I was reading like a piece about like the writer of the first movie. And he was talking about how, like, listen, we had a limited budget for that film. Like, we had $50 million, or however much it was, between 50 and 60. And we weren't able to do the usual thing that other blockbusters, other big bombastic superhero films were able to do.
Yeah,
and so when we wanted to do this, Fox said no. And we were like, okay, we have to approach it differently. We have to be smarter. And he said that made the movie even better.
It did.
Because we did not become indulgent. And that's why the first Deadpool was like fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it had limited budget. And it still made it's the highest grossing Fox era movie.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, that's glad you interrupted and brought that up, because that brings me to my point of the benefits of spending less. I mean, there are a lot of benefits of spending less by these studios if they do it. They need this is good that this is happening right now, because they need to scale back, and there are a lot of benefits that I perceive. I don't know, and I'm just taking a guess at some of these. Some of these I think we can agree on. Some of these I just might be, you know, just talking on my ass like I usually do. But you know, I think there's probably three major benefits to spending less. You guys probably have something to add on to it to make it more. But to your point, you know, one, cutting back budgets forces you to be more creative.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we'll start getting better scripts. You know, the effects won't be leaned on so much. You know, because now it's become a crutch almost. Now it's become just a demo reel. To show people. You know, you'll get out of this mentality that effects and budgets are what bring people in, when that's being, maybe back in the day when we didn't have so much choice. Definitely.
We have so much choice.
But we have streaming now. We have TV shows. We have, you know, this, we have video games. You know, there's so much competing with movies. That's not the case anymore. You can just not depend on your spectacles and effects and your budgets and your big names. And it's funny how today even big names are considered to not be selling things as much.
Yeah.
Number two, I think this is just me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it'll cut down on runtime with movies.
Oh my God, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I mean,
that would be nice.
Think about it, y'all. Think about how many of these movies are long just because the movie stops just to let these characters beat the shit out of each other and tear up the city. You know, I mean, Superman or Man of Steel, they need to be that long, but they spent how long tearing up the city right here, killing people? Which Superman shouldn't be doing the first goddamn place. I mean, this is stupid.
That's true. Such a great point.
It's dumb, man. You know, it's just showboating now. It's just showing off.
Yeah.
That's that's why there was criticism with this film, because they weren't thinking about how they were killing people. They just thought we're tearing up buildings and it looks cool.
It looks cool, yeah. Exactly.
Well, everybody complained with the last one that he didn't punch enough stuff. So they're like, all right, fine, we'll triple down on that.
How about this? Don't worry about punching or tearing up shit. Yes, but how about you just write a good story? That's what was missing.
No.
And you know something? More importantly, probably one of the most important things, because this affects people directly. 3, I think that this would be better for the effects industry. Because right now you're making all these special effects, and what happens when you do that? These studios have been closing. People have been, it's been interfering with their lives, their families, because of crunch time. You have these studios that outbid each other so they can get a job, and then they put these just crazy deadlines on them. And I think that if you cut back a little bit and stop really pushing so many effects and concentrate more on story, maybe we'll start to stabilize the effects industry just a little bit.
Well, but wouldn't that be taking jobs away?
There's already being jobs taken away because studios close down. Studios outbid each other. After they're done with a job, they let people go.
Right.
I think that there's a long-term benefit, like if you cut back and add stability to the industry, and jobs will be more stable. And plus, even if people are kept employed, they become unstable.
At the very least, they wouldn't be overworked.
They wouldn't be. That's what I'm saying. Become unstable because they get overworked.
Yeah.
But I mean, think about.
But they always have the option of saying, "I'm not going to take this job."
What, a studio?
Yeah.
But they don't. That's why studios close down, because I need this job to take care of my employees. So I got to outbid another studio.
Right.
So I bid low, and then when I bid low, the studio goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
That happened to the studio that did the effects for Sonic, and Life of Pi.
I know it, Life of Pi.
Yeah, so
they were winning the Oscar and they were shut down already.
Yeah. Wow. So that's when you have that, that's going to start. I think if you stabilize things, the longevity of studios can be there. Can actually.
I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just trying to figure out how this works economically, because if you take away jobs, wouldn't the studios still underbid each other for the few that are left?
You're not taking away jobs. You're just creating enough jobs. You're not trying to overburden studios to the point where they're closing down.
Where it stabilizes.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. You hear what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I think right now the VFX industry is such a horrible place that I don't know what the end result's going to be. But what's probably going to happen with all these big flops happening, you're like, okay, we're going to have to consolidate, limit our resources, and maybe you're going to only have like a few of these VFX houses available, and maybe that's when it'll stabilize, and that's when people will be overworked and they'll be paid adequately. I don't know what's going to be.
When blockbusters flop, you're probably losing jobs anyway.
Yeah.
Better effects can be done because they'll have more time taken on them. I mean, it's getting to the point now where some effects are bad, some effects are just starting to look like each other.
Yeah.
I mean, The Flash had terrible effects, and I don't care what that director says, because I don't think they had time to finish that, and they went back and did so many reshoots and everything. Quantumania, I would say that Guardians of the Galaxy caught the right tone, but this movie just was kind of generic looking
for a lot of people. It didn't work.
Yeah,
those effects.
So I don't know, man. I think that there's a lot that can be done if you just pull back on the budget a little bit on these films.
Well, that one thing, because it is so much. It's hey, if you have fewer resources, you have to work smarter.
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of not smart people out there.
That's true.
Well, I mean, just like I said, with his example of Deadpool, a lot of people, there's so many movies out there where it's not a matter that they're not smart. It's a matter of that they're just given whatever anything. They're given any kind of budget to do whatever they want to.
Carte blanche.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's not because they're not smart. It's just because, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is too extreme of a word, but lazy, or they can just, you can do anything. You can just do something on a whim.
I feel like, you get lost in the system no matter what. Because let me ask you guys this. I know we're bullying Indiana Jones, but if I would ask people, like, who directed that movie? I would say,
Mango.
No, I'm saying, but not knowing who the director was. and I said James Mangold, I bet no one would have guessed it was James Mangold that directed that film. The guy that did Logan, which was on a limited budget. The guy who did Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah.
None of his personality is in that film at all.
Yeah.
It's
true.
like that's what I'm saying. Like that apparatus that's in
that
place.
studio, yeah.
It's like any personality that James Mangold, any of his talent, clearly is not in that film because of what that overinflated budget, everything.
Yeah, and that's what happens with a lot of big budget movies. I think that's why Marvel's kind of looking the same with a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's why you have blockbusters that look the same, because you are 100% correct that once you are given a huge budget, it's a couple of things. You are given access to do whatever you want to do and whatever you want to do, but also the studio is on your ass all the time to make a studio movie.
I think it's that. I think it's more than that. The studio's always
you have
involved.
access to do whatever they want you.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Studios, when the more budget they have for these films, they become prepackaged studio films.
Yeah.
That's that they don't give you as much control as you think they do. On a lower budget film, you have that.
I feel like you have more control when you have a low budget because there's less risk involved. Like, all right, do what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of these people get to where they are because they did make some smart decisions somewhere, and then everybody just becomes intimidated by the budget. That's the budget's a scary thing, and everybody's controlled by that. That's why they need to cut back on this, man. That's what you're getting. That's why horror is so cool right now, because they're not. We're having a great moment in horror.
These last couple of years.
Because horror is not being constrained and controlled as much as some of these other movies out here. That's why you get something like Barbarian, man, and gets to come out there and take a risk. Because the studios, look, if this fails, the studio can easily write this off too.
That's $5 million write-off.
It is.
Okay.
By the way, this will never change. These things go in cycles. I
don't know, man. This year in particular, because it's not just like Indiana Jones flopping, The Flash flopping, like even The Little Mermaid, like that didn't make a profit.
Well, that's because she was black.
But it's that's a $250 million movie and it just crossed $500 million, so it made back its budget. But that's a failure too. There's been a lot of failures this year. I feel like you're going to finally have these studios realize, like, we can't do this. It doesn't monetarily make any sense anymore.
Well, plus these are all, everything you're listing are blockbusters that kind of held back and rested on their laurels. So
true.
I feel like any of these movies gave you a reason to come back and watch them again.
No,
because that's how they make profit. It's not from everybody who goes to see it the first weekend. It's the people who go see it and then come back and watch it again. Yep. And then like, oh, I got to take my kids. Oh, I got to go with my friends. Yeah. If it's a one and done, you're just not going to make that much money.
You're right. I think you're 100% right with that, and you're right too. Disney's a whole man. They've taken everything we've said to a whole other level.
Yeah.
They cannibalize themselves, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing that you talk about not being forced to be creative. I mean, you can go back and just double dip in your own well, man. All these movies, it's funny because this summer's been, for me, it's been full of movies where it's like, I don't think they're terrible. I think they're, again, excessive and forgettable.
Yeah.
They don't have that thing that makes you go, I gotta go see that again.
Yeah, it's an empty calorie summer, y'all. We're looking at movies where they're like snacks. You watch them, and then when you're done, you move on to the next thing. And you get and really when you leave, you get no real nutrition from them.
Right, it's like the popcorn.
Yeah, exactly. Real popcorn movies, man.
Yeah, and then later by the time you get back to your car, you're like, I'm ready for dinner.
What would you say? Because this one didn't do too well. I think it did well enough to say we'll be all right to release the next one, but I don't think it made nearly the money that they wanted to. What's the lesson to be learned from this film?
Years old.
That's Fast X, which 3 weeks later, that shit was on my TV.
I know.
Available to rent.
I know.
Yeah.
What's the lesson to be learned here?
Stop.
Yeah. Slow down.
No, you know what? I think the lesson, it's really too late. It's like, everybody universally has come to know these movies as being stupid. but
no, you're right.
People go like, well, I don't care. I'm just in it for the fun. But there's a lot of people who are just like, Now to suddenly go like, all right, you guys are right. We're going to pull back, make them a little smarter. Nobody's going to. It's too late.
Did they say they're going to try that?
No.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, if they did, it's not going to make people go like, oh, well, let me come back. Because the people they've lost, they're lost.
Yeah. It's too late now.
I think the way Martin was like, no, you idiot.
Martin, you actually made me excited. It was like, wait, who said that?
I was like, okay. But that would be the thing, to pull back on the budget, not just get so outrageous. Because this is the quintessential franchise that feels like it needs to just outdo itself with the exploits each time. And it's like, no, Like, yeah, sure, you had to move on from just street racing, but now it's gotten so far out.
I think
that
because
people can't connect with it the way they used to.
Yeah, because this didn't flop as hard as The Flash or Indiana Jones. I think people are starting to overlook this movie, but this is probably the most excessive one.
This is over $300 million.
It's 340.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, this is probably the most excessive out of all these movies. And Martin, I think you're right. And they need to stop because if they didn't do it this last movie, they are at that point where they're about to do it on the next one. Yeah, so something has to change. And I think, again, looking at what happened this weekend, blockbusters really need to take a look at horror. Even the ones that aren't being reviewed favorably by critics are the audiences. Because I don't think that this Insidious, the Red Door, I don't even think that has been favorably seen by audiences that went to see it. I think they came out here and gave this a low cinema score. But one weekend,
that's all it needed.
Made his money back. Yeah. But take a lesson from the good movies out there. The good horror movies that take a chance. The ones that go out there and to give us something different, give us riskier stories, more creative stories. I truly believe that these are successful, not because they're cheap, but because they do offer the audiences something different out there. So a lot of stuff to be learned right here. A lot of stuff to be taken in, a lot of stuff to process. We'll see what the future holds. What do you think the future holds?
What I'm hopeful for is that we'll start to get more originality and that they'll start to greenlight projects, but it's like, hey, you have a limited budget to do that, but go ahead and try it. I think we'll start to see more of that, not just in the horror genre, but in multiple different genres.
The machines that put these in place, they are slow. It's like
No, you're
like a
that's true.
brontosaurus where you hit its tail and it takes almost a day for it to reach the brain and it was in pain. So everything you're saying, it's probably going to take a year or two for that.
Yes,
for
I
us
agree.
to see the results of
I agree with that.
Because they got stuff already in production. When you say like, oh, you need a smaller budget. It's like, oh, now you tell me.
DC's just sweating like we have Blue Beetle and we have Aquaman. They're still coming out this year.
Get that out the way, and maybe that needs to be maybe those need to be sacrifices because even James Gunn has said that these budgets are out of control.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, with that said, Mocha Muffin, he probably has the best closer here. He probably has the best and most insightful thing to say about the discussion that we have. He says, it ain't easy being cheesy. He dropped $1.40 right there to say
It's true. We spent 40 minutes and we could have just summed it up.
We just could have summed it up with that, man. Oh, well. We're like these budgets, man.
Exactly.
Inflated, man.
He worked smarter.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.